And he says, by George, I'll do it now, said Maxwell half aloud. I will ask her now. I wonder I didn't do it. All of a sudden he comes and tells, here is a lady whom he had asked for. Idea about the stock market, whether I will earn or whether I will gain. There is no place open here, madam. He says, there is no place open. Don't you understand? I am being very simple, very straightforward. I want you to be my wife, will you? 8 o'clock he has married and he has forgotten the previous day, just last evening. Hello, hi, namaste and welcome to Vidhyaashram, first grade college, the temple of excellence. I am Nanda Kishore, faculty of English in Vidhyaashram, MYSURU. In my previous session, I had spoken about the prose titled as The Romance of a Busy Broker, which is prescribed to B.Com and B.B.A MYSURU University students. And in today's session, let us see what will happen in the prose, the romance of a busy broker. Let me just give you a recap about the previous session. Remember, there were 3 characters. The first character was Pitcher. He was the clerk, the confidential clerk, and in the previous session, he is the one who brings the new stenographer, and the second character is stenographer, the lady who's seeking the attention of Maxwell, Harvey Maxwell. So who is Maxwell here? Maxwell is the broker in New York City, Manhattan. And this lady is in the office for 1 year, since 1 year. And she is wondering why new person is going to come and occupy her space or the position. And remember, this picture has brought, he has come with a new lady, new stenographer. And while Maxwell is very busy looking at these stuffs of stocks and mortgage and all those stuffs, all of a sudden he comes and tells, here is a lady whom he had asked for. And Maxwell tells, what for? Did I tell that? For what position? Remember, that is where we had stopped. Now let us see what will Maxwell tell. You're losing your mind, Pitcher. The moment Pitcher introduces the new lady to Maxwell, he says, you're losing your mind, Pitcher, said Maxwell. Why should I have given you any such instructions? Now he says, you think I asked you to get a new person here? No, but what were the words asked by stenographer here to Pitcher? Did Maxwell instruct you to hire a new person? Did Maxwell tell you yesterday evening or night to get a new person? And he says, yes, of course. Yes, he did. But it is quite confusing here. Why should I have given you any such instructions? Maxwell is telling this. Miss Leslie. Now, this is the name of the stenographer. Stenographer 1, the lady who wanted to seek attention from Maxwell. Her name is Miss Leslie. Has given perfect satisfaction during the year she has been here. She has given the perfect satisfaction. The place is hers as long as she chooses to retain it. In the sense, as long as she wants here, she is going to stay. If she wants to leave, then she can leave. Nobody is going to compel her. Look at the liberty given there. There is no place open here, madam. He says, there is no place open. Sorry, it is closed. Countermand. Cancel it. He says, countermand, cancel. Cancel that order with the agency. Pitcher. And he says, cancel that order with agency, Pitcher, and don't bring any more of him in here. He says, M is them. He says, my dear Pitcher, don't bring any more of them in here. The silver heart left the office. What is this silver heart? Is describing the lady here. Remember, she wore the silver heart which almost touched the floor. And she is not telling, the author is not telling that she is a woman. The woman left. Instead of telling the woman left, the author is, he wants to describe the woman in a different way. Remember? And he says, the silver heart left the office, swinging and banging itself independently against the office furniture as it indignantly departed, angrily. Because straight away, bluntly, Maxwell told on her face that there are no openings, sorry, and she left. Pitcher seized a moment to remark the bookkeeper that the old man, who is this old man here? Maxwell, that the old man seemed to get more absent-minded and forgetful every day of the world. Bookkeeper is talking to the record keeper. He says, I think something is wrong with this Maxwell. He is forgetting, he tends to become more forgetful every day of the world outside. Remember, the world is about stock market for them. The monitor, the stock market is the world for the brokers. And then he moves on and tells, the rush and pace of business grew fiercer and faster. On the floor, they were pounding half a dozen stocks in which Maxwell's customers were heavy investors. Remember, he's the broker and his investors are investing a lot of stuffs here. Heavy money. Orders to buy and sell were coming and going as swift as the flight of swallows. Flight of swallows? Swallows are the birds here. They're small birds, sort of like a sparrow. And they fly in group, right? The flight of the sparrow, just like shh, sit, fly, sit, fly, sit, fly. Because they cannot fly for a longer time, for the longer distance. So it is just like constantly ups and downs. Some of his own holdings were imperiled, danger, threat. They were in threat. And the man was working like some high-geared, delicate, strong machine strung to full tension, going at full speed, accurate, never hesitating, with the proper word and decision and act ready and prompt as clockwork. Look at these words. In one stretch, the author is describing about the working ethics of this person, broker Maxwell. How the man working like some high-geared professional, delicate, very sensible. He should have an idea, in and out idea about the stock market, whether I will earn or whether I will gain money or I will lose it. Delicate, being sensible enough. Strong, yes, delicate, strong, machine strung to full tension. Full tension, full speed at maximum. How much could you think? What could you do? He is extending his arms and he is reaching its thinking ability to the fullest. Going at full speed, accurate. Not going just in full speed, but accuracy. Never hesitating, with a proper word and decision and act ready and prompt as clockwork. He is like a machine. The clock never stops. The clock and tide never stops. He is like a machine there. Stocks and bonds, loans and mortgages, margins and securities. Here was a world of finance, and there was no room in it for the human world or the world of nature. That's how exactly is the world in the stock market. Is all about money, 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 money. It's about stocks, it's about bonds, it's about loans, it's about money, importantly. And there is no space for human world and the world of nature, natural world. Look at the words used. Human world, where the author compares them to the machines. That is why he says the machine like a man, right? Similarly, he says like human world, no space for them. And world of nature, not natural. It is so unnatural, I'll tell you. People act weird in stock market. That is the pulse of people who are working as brokers. Next, when the lunch on hour, now this is the midday meal, hour drew near, there came a slight lull in the uproar. Yes, a sort of a pause here, slight reduction, because it is the lunch time and people would go and have their lunch. Maxwell stood by his desk with his hands full of telegrams and memoranda with a fountain pen over his right here. Just the way I'm holding, right? It was just like tucked in here. And his hair hanging disorderly. Yes, because he might have this like, wondering, oh, what to invest, what to do. We always do this when we are tensed and, and the air is scrambled there. It is like falling all over his face, hanging in disorderly, strings over his forehead. His window was open. Now, this is the description about what he is doing. This is very important. His window was open for the beloved janitress. Who is this janitress? Janitress is a person who is responsible of keeping the room temperature in a moderate way. To look after the room temperature, or the person who cleans it. Yes. And beloved janitress spring. What is the season now? You should understand these words. Spring season, and he calls it janitress. This is a figure of speech, metaphor. Directly he calls the spring as janitress, had turned on a little warmth. It's getting warm now. Turned on a little warmth through the waking registers of the earth. The temperature is steadily rising now. And through the window came a wandering, perhaps a lost odor, right? Smell, odor, a delicate, lost odor, a delicate, sweet odor of lilac. Odor, smell of lilac. Lilac is a plant with fragrant flowers. It smells too good. So he says, where is it coming from? Yes, from the window that fixed the broker for a moment immovable. Fixed in the sense, just imagine, you just take up this rose, smell it, so good. Fixed in the sense, for a second, you are like, you cannot move, you cannot think of anything else but only think about the smell, the odor. Odor, yes, for a moment immovable. For this odor belonged to Miss Leslie. So where is it coming from? The office next to his room. It was her own and hers only. There is nobody else and no other smell. Odor. The odor brought her vividly, almost tangibly before him. The world of finance dwindled suddenly to a speck. Dwindled. Yes, which slackened, which becomes reduction. And suddenly to a speck, to the spot. Remember, these are the words which is showing the mentality of Maxwell. Because this many hours or this many minutes, this many seconds, he was only into stock market. Money, money, money. But now, just the smell odor has brought him out of that mentality. That speculation. And she was in the next room, 20 steps away, just 20 steps. But it is a great number of steps to recall the smell of that lilac plant. And now he says, this should be read in one stretch. And he says, by George, I'll do it now, said Maxwell half aloud. I will ask her now. I wonder I didn't do it long ago. He dashed into the inner office with a haste of shot trying to cover, and he says, after this, immediately after he smelt it, now he decides, I'm going, somehow, he recalls something which had hidden deep in his mind or back of his mind. And he says, all of a sudden, there is sudden burst, sudden cry. He says, by George, by God, Khuda ki kasam, today I'm going to ask her to do what? By God, I'll do it now, said Maxwell half aloud. By God, I will do it now. I'll ask her now. I wonder I didn't do it long ago. Now he's wondering, why didn't I do it? Ask her what? We don't know. He dashed into the inner office with a haste of a shot trying to cover. He charged upon the desk of the stenographer. She looked up at him with a smile. She's looking up. Yes? Yeah? Now, a soft pink crept over her cheek. Soft pink crept over. Smile. The pink cheek. Yes, and her eyes were kind and frank. Very like sort of a lovable appearance. Maxwell leaned one elbow on her desk. It's like, yes. And he still clutched fluttering papers with both hands and the pen was above his ear. Now, he's still holding on to few papers and he just bends and, maybe he wants to talk to. Let us see what he says. Miss Leslie, now he says, Miss Leslie, he began hurriedly. This is very important. I have but a moment to spare. I want to say something in that moment. Will you be my wife? My God. All of a sudden, right? He straight away goes to that lady, Miss Leslie, remember the name, and he just bends and he wants to get closer to her. And he says, I have, these are the words. I have but a moment. Look at this. That is the life of a broker. This each and every word will give you a picture about the life of a broker, busy broker. But a moment to spare, just a minute. Which man would propose a lady or a woman or a girl with this 1 minute? And he pretends as if he has no time. Let us see what happens. I want to say something in that moment. Will you be my wife? Straight away, bluntly asking. I haven't had time to make love to you in the ordinary way, but I really do love you. Talk quick, please. Those fellows are clubbing and stuffing out of Union Pacific. He says, will you be my wife? And he's not giving time. Think about it. Which girl would agree or which girl would say yes? Yeah, of course, if the girl or the lady or the woman who knows a person very well since very long time, of course, immediately, even if she had that mentality, the feelings and the emotions, same sort of emotions, to be his wife, possibly she would say immediately yes. But we don't know what is the condition here with Miss Leslie. Let us see. Talk quick. Now he's forcing us. Please talk. You say yes or no. Talk quick. Please. Those fellows are clubbing. Those fellows are the stockbrokers. They are clubbing. Yes, bringing up and stuffing. They are like dumping everything out of Union Pacific. Union Pacific is like, this is a place where 23 districts are united in America. And he says that these are the states which are very important. And he's talking about the importance of losing and gaining the stocks here. Oh, what are you talking about? Exclaimed the young lady. Oh, my God, yeah? What? Oh, what are you talking about? Exclaimed the young lady. She rose to her feet. She is sitting there, remember. She gets up and gazed upon him, round-eyed. What are you talking about? Really? Are you serious? Let us see what happens next. Don't you understand? Said Maxwell, restively. I want you to marry me. I love you, Miss Leslie. I wanted to tell you, and I snatched a minute when things had slackened up a bit. They are calling me for the phone now. Tell him to wait a minute, pitcher. He says, don't you understand? I'm being very simple, very straightforward. I want you to be my wife, will you? I want you to marry me. I love you, Miss Leslie. I wanted to tell you and I snatched a minute. He says, really, I don't have time to tell you this, but still I found time. As I told you, even a single second, a millisecond could it can make you go bankrupt or it can make you a multimillionaire. Who knows? When things had slackened, short, when the business trading has come down, yes, up a bit. They're calling me for the phone now, right? Remember, I have to go and speak to my clients. Tell them, right? Tell them to wait a minute, pitcher. There are a lot of phone calls coming for me. Please, won't you, Miss Leslie? Won't you marry me? The stenographer acted very queerly, confused, right? Hey, what is wrong? Is that a way that a man comes to woman and proposes? That too without a bouquet? Yes, or maybe a ring or something. And that too, what is he holding? He's clutching onto papers on both his hands. And at first, she seemed overcome with amazement. Then tears flowed from her wandering eyes. Maybe she might say yes. And then she smiled sunnily through them and one of her arms slid tenderly about the broker's neck. She will just put her arm around the neck, Maxwell's neck, and let us see whether she says yes or no. And then she says, I know now. I know now. She said softly, it's this old business that has driven everything else out of your head for the time. This old business is playing with you, with your emotions. I was frightened at first. Don't you remember, Harvey? Now she's saying, don't you remember, Harvey? We were married last evening. We are already married, and my God, Harvey has forgotten that he has married her, married Miss Leslie the previous night, 8 o'clock. At what time? 8 o'clock. Where? In the little church around the corner. Such a disgusting experience for a woman, embarrassment. How could a person forget about his marriage? It's funny, isn't it? The moment I begin this prose, I told you, O. Henry's writings are wittiful. It's very humorous. Yes, and it's also quite shocking. That is the reason why the title says the romance, the romance of the busy broker. 8 o'clock he has married and he has forgotten the previous day, just last evening, 8 o'clock. So funny. Yes, think about the situation. What would you do if you were in that position? Imagine, right? So that is it about this prose. Let us see the previous year's question paper. These two questions were asked for 1 mark each. What was the profession of Harvey Maxwell? He is a broker, right? And how long had the young lady been Maxwell's secretary? For 1 year. So she is a secretary, stenographer, secretary. And how is the romance? This is for 10 marks. Remember, how is the romance of the busy broker depicted in the story? The romance of the busy broker. So the romance, how do you write? You have to write about the author and the way he brings up the witty remarks. You have to also mention about the stenographer, the secretary, Leslie, how she appears and tries to grab or grasp the attention from the Maxwell, from the person, from Maxwell, and unfortunately he fails, right? He never remembers what had happened the last night. And then you go on talking about his absent-minded character, behavior, and still he comes up, he overcomes. What makes him overcome all this? The lilac, the smell, the odor of the lilac. And somehow he decides that he's going to propose. But what happens at the end? Actually, he had been married the previous night at 8 o'clock to the same lady whom he has proposed now. So that is it about this prose. So thank you so much. I'll be coming back again with a new topic in my next session. Until then, keep reading. Have a good day. Take care.